The protein sitting in your refrigerator right now might be aging you faster than time itself. Every morning, millions of people over 60 reach for what they believe are healthy choices, trusting labels that promise lean nutrition and heart-healthy benefits. Yet beneath the plastic packaging and reassuring marketing claims lies a troubling reality that the food industry would rather keep hidden from aging consumers. When you walk through the meat section of any grocery store, you are witnessing one of the most sophisticated deception campaigns in modern nutrition. The carefully arranged displays of pink sliced turkey, pristine chicken breasts, and neatly packaged cold cuts represent billions of dollars in profit built on a foundation of misinformation. These products are specifically marketed to older adults who have been conditioned for decades to believe that lean means healthy and that processed means convenient without consequence. Consider what happens inside your body when you consume that innocent-looking turkey sandwich at lunch. The moment those processed meat slices enter your digestive system, they release a cascade of sodium that would shock most people if they saw the actual numbers. A single serving can contain over 1,000 milligrams of sodium, but that is only the beginning of the problem. The real danger lies in how this sodium interacts with aging kidneys that have already lost 30 to 40% of their filtering capacity. Your kidneys at 65 are not the same organs they were at 25. They process sodium more slowly, struggle to maintain proper fluid balance, and cannot efficiently clear the phosphates and nitrites that manufacturers add to extend shelf life. These chemicals accumulate in your bloodstream like sediment in old pipes, gradually restricting flow and increasing pressure throughout your cardiovascular system. The turkey you chose because it seemed like the healthier option compared to red meat is actually a delivery system for chemical preservatives that your body was never designed to process in such quantities. Sodium nitrite, sodium phosphate, and dozens of other additives work together to create a toxic burden that manifests as swollen ankles, rising blood pressure, and that persistent fatigue you might attribute to normal aging. But the deception runs even deeper when we examine what has happened to chicken, once considered the gold standard of healthy protein. The modern chicken breast bears almost no resemblance to the poultry our grandparents consumed. Today's factory-raised chickens grow to market weight in just 6 weeks, compared to the 16 weeks it took 50 years ago. This accelerated growth is achieved through selective breeding, controlled lighting that prevents normal sleep cycles, and feed laced with growth-promoting additives. The result is meat that looks normal on the outside but carries a hidden payload of problems for aging bodies. When chickens are raised in cramped conditions with tens of thousands of other birds, disease spreads rapidly. To combat this, producers routinely add antibiotics to feed, not to treat sick birds but to prevent illness and promote faster growth. These antibiotics do not simply disappear when the chicken reaches your plate. Research from leading universities has revealed that over 70% of chicken sold in supermarkets contains detectable levels of antibiotic residues. When you consume this meat regularly, you are not just eating protein. You are ingesting substances that disrupt your gut microbiome, that delicate ecosystem of beneficial bacteria that becomes increasingly important for health as we age. The destruction of gut bacteria leads to compromised immunity, poor nutrient absorption, and systemic inflammation that accelerates every aspect of aging. The inflammation triggered by factory-farmed chicken creates a particularly insidious problem for people over 60. Your joints, which already face decades of wear and tear, become targets for inflammatory compounds that increase pain and stiffness. Your blood vessels, which need to remain flexible to accommodate changing blood pressure throughout the day, begin to stiffen and narrow. Your muscle tissue, which you desperately need to maintain for mobility and independence, starts breaking down faster than your body can rebuild it. Many seniors notice their knees hurting more, their energy dropping, and their sleep quality declining, all while eating what they believe is a healthy diet centered on lean chicken breast. They blame age when the real culprit sits on their dinner plate, disguised as a healthy choice. The chicken industry has mastered the art of marketing their product as pure, simple, and natural, using images of family farms and pastoral settings that bear no resemblance to the industrial operations where most chicken is actually produced. Even the way chicken is processed adds another layer of concern. To increase profit margins, processors inject chicken breasts with saltwater solutions that can add up to 15% to the weight. This means you are paying for water, but more importantly, you are consuming even more sodium that your aging kidneys must struggle to eliminate. The injection solutions often contain phosphates, which interfere with calcium absorption and contribute to bone weakening at a time when maintaining bone density is critical. The cumulative effect of consuming processed and factory-farmed meats day after day creates a metabolic burden that aging bodies simply cannot handle efficiently. Your liver, which has already lost some of its detoxification capacity with age, must work overtime to process the chemical additives. Your pancreas, trying to manage blood sugar that becomes increasingly difficult to control after 60, faces additional stress from the inflammatory compounds in processed meats. The sodium overload from deli meats does more than raise blood pressure. It pulls calcium from your bones, contributing to osteoporosis. It interferes with potassium balance, affecting heart rhythm and muscle function. It creates fluid retention that makes your heart work harder with every beat, wearing it down like an engine running constantly in overdrive. Meanwhile, the nitrites used to preserve color and prevent bacterial growth convert to compounds called nitrosamines in your digestive system. These substances have been linked to cellular damage that accumulates over time, affecting everything from cognitive function to cardiovascular health. The very preservatives meant to keep meat safe are creating a different kind of danger, one that unfolds slowly over months and years. The marketing messages surrounding these products specifically target older adults with promises of convenience and health benefits. Low fat, reduced sodium, and heart-healthy labels create an illusion of nutritious choices. But these labels often hide the full story. Reduced sodium might still mean 800 mg per serving, and low fat often means additional processing and additives to maintain texture and flavor. The trust that seniors place in familiar brands and traditional advice makes them particularly vulnerable to these deceptions. Many grew up in an era when food was simpler, when chicken was chicken and turkey was turkey. They assume that the products available today maintain those same standards, not realizing how dramatically food production has changed in pursuit of profit and efficiency. The dark meat paradox presents another layer of confusion for older adults trying to make healthy choices. Turkey thighs and chicken legs are often recommended for their higher mineral content and richer flavor, yet these cuts harbor dangers that become particularly pronounced after 60. The same properties that make dark meat moist and flavorful also make it a concentrated source of compounds that aging bodies struggle to process. When meat processors prepare dark meat products for sale, especially those labeled as pre-seasoned or smoked, they add layers of sodium phosphate that serve multiple purposes. These phosphates retain moisture, enhance flavor, and extend shelf life, but they also create a metabolic storm in aging bodies. Phosphates interfere with calcium metabolism in ways that become increasingly problematic as kidney function naturally declines with age. The relationship between phosphates and vascular health reveals itself gradually. These compounds trigger a hardening of blood vessels that happens so slowly that most people never connect it to their dietary choices. Blood vessels lose their elasticity, becoming rigid tubes that cannot properly expand and contract with each heartbeat. This vascular stiffness forces the heart to pump harder, creating a cascade of cardiovascular stress that compounds over months and years. Consider what happens when someone over 60 consumes pre-marinated turkey thighs twice a week, believing they are making a healthier choice than red meat. The phosphates accumulate faster than aging kidneys can clear them, creating an imbalance that pulls calcium from bones and deposits it in soft tissues where it does not belong. Arteries begin to calcify, joints become stiffer, and the risk of stroke climbs steadily higher. The situation becomes even more complex when we examine organ meats, particularly liver, which many seniors consume believing they are accessing concentrated nutrition. Liver does indeed contain impressive amounts of vitamins and minerals, but this concentration becomes problematic for aging bodies that process nutrients differently than younger ones. The vitamin A content in liver can reach levels that transform from beneficial to toxic with surprising speed. A single serving of beef liver can provide 7 times the daily requirement of vitamin A, and this excess does not simply pass through the body harmlessly. Fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A accumulate in tissues over time, and aging bodies clear these accumulations more slowly. The result is a gradual buildup that can manifest as blurred vision, skin problems, and even bone weakening, ironically contradicting the very health benefits people seek from consuming liver. The iron content in organ meats presents another concern that becomes particularly relevant after 60. While iron deficiency can certainly be a problem for some seniors, many others face the opposite issue without realizing it. The heme iron in liver is absorbed very efficiently, sometimes too efficiently for aging bodies that no longer lose iron through menstruation or rapid growth. This excess iron acts as an oxidizing agent, creating cellular damage that accelerates aging at the molecular level. Iron overload from regular organ meat consumption can deposit in the liver, heart, and pancreas, interfering with their function in ways that mimic other age-related conditions. Fatigue, joint pain, and cognitive decline that might be attributed to normal aging could actually stem from excess iron, creating oxidative stress throughout the body. The very food consumed to boost energy and vitality becomes a source of systemic inflammation and cellular damage. This understanding of how certain meats can harm rather than heal opens the door to a different approach to protein consumption after 60. The solution lies not in avoiding meat entirely but in choosing sources that work with aging biology rather than against it. The transformation begins with understanding that not all protein sources create the same metabolic burden. Grass-fed beef, consumed in appropriate portions, represents a dramatic departure from conventional meat in its impact on aging bodies. The difference starts at the cellular level, where the fatty acid profile of grass-fed beef contains significantly higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids and conjugated linoleic acid. These compounds do not merely provide nutrition, they actively combat the inflammation that drives so many age-related health problems. The conjugated linoleic acid found in grass-fed beef has been shown to preserve lean muscle mass while reducing body fat, a combination that becomes increasingly valuable after 60 when sarcopenia threatens independence. This natural compound works at the cellular level to maintain the muscle tissue that conventional protein sources fail to protect. The difference is not just theoretical, it manifests in improved strength, better balance, and enhanced energy levels. When someone over 60 replaces their regular consumption of processed meats with modest portions of grass-fed beef, the transformation can be remarkable. Blood pressure often stabilizes, energy levels improve, and that persistent brain fog that many attribute to aging begins to clear. The key lies in understanding that quality matters far more than quantity when it comes to protein after 60. The portion size becomes critical in this equation. 3 to 4 ounces of grass-fed beef, roughly the size of a deck of cards, provides adequate protein without overwhelming aging digestive systems. This amount delivers essential amino acids, bioavailable iron, and vitamin B12 without the excessive calories or saturated fat that larger portions would bring. The moderation is not about restriction but about optimization for bodies that process nutrients differently than they did decades ago. The timing and pairing of protein consumption also plays a crucial role in maximizing benefits while minimizing stress on aging systems. Consuming grass-fed beef with leafy greens rich in vitamin C enhances iron absorption while providing alkalizing minerals that balance the acid load of protein. This synergy between foods represents a more sophisticated understanding of nutrition that goes beyond simple calorie counting or macronutrient ratios. The preparation method matters as much as the source. Slow cooking at lower temperatures preserves nutrients while making the protein easier to digest for aging digestive systems that produce less stomach acid. Braising, stewing, or slow roasting grass-fed beef with herbs and vegetables creates meals that nourish without overwhelming, providing sustained energy rather than the spike and crash associated with processed meats. This shift from processed to regenerative protein sources represents more than a dietary change. It acknowledges that aging bodies have different needs and capabilities than younger ones, requiring a more thoughtful approach to nutrition. The goal is not to fight aging through force but to support the body with foods that enhance its natural regenerative processes. The omega-3 fatty acids in grass-fed beef support brain health at a time when cognitive preservation becomes paramount. These essential fats maintain cell membrane flexibility in brain tissue, supporting memory and mental clarity. They also reduce inflammation throughout the nervous system, potentially slowing the progression of age-related cognitive decline. Beyond the individual nutrients, grass-fed beef from regeneratively raised cattle contains compounds that factory-farmed meat simply cannot provide. The diverse diet of grass-fed cattle, including various grasses and herbs, translates into meat with a broader spectrum of phytonutrients and antioxidants. These compounds work synergistically to support cellular health in ways that isolated supplements cannot replicate. The world of wild game meats remains largely unexplored by most people over 60, yet these proteins offer therapeutic benefits that conventional meats cannot match. Venison, the meat from deer, stands out as particularly valuable for aging bodies struggling with muscle loss and chronic inflammation. Unlike cattle raised in feedlots or chickens confined to warehouses, deer roam freely, eating diverse natural foods that translate into meat with an entirely different nutritional profile. The protein density of venison surpasses that of conventional meats while maintaining remarkably low fat content. This combination becomes especially important after 60 when the body needs maximum nutrition with minimal metabolic burden. Every ounce of venison delivers more usable protein to muscle tissue while requiring less energy for digestion and processing. The efficiency of this protein utilization means that smaller portions provide greater benefits than larger servings of conventional meat. What makes venison particularly remarkable for aging bodies is its natural content of creatine and carnosine, two compounds that directly support muscle energy and recovery. Creatine, often associated with athletic supplements, occurs naturally in wild game at levels that support cellular energy production without the risks of synthetic supplementation. This natural creatine helps maintain the rapid energy systems that allow muscles to respond quickly, preserving the reflexes and reaction times that prevent falls and maintain independence. Carnosine, less well known but equally important, acts as a buffer against the acid buildup that causes muscle fatigue. As we age, our natural carnosine production declines, contributing to the quick exhaustion many seniors experience during routine activities. The carnosine in venison helps restore this buffering capacity, allowing muscles to work longer before fatigue sets in. This translates into practical benefits like being able to climb stairs without stopping or carry groceries without exhaustion. The iron in venison deserves special attention because it exists in a form that aging bodies can utilize efficiently without the overload risks associated with organ meats. The bioavailability of venison iron surpasses that of plant sources by significant margins while avoiding the excessive concentrations found in liver. This balanced iron content supports oxygen delivery to tissues without creating the oxidative stress that accelerates aging. Moving beyond venison, bison emerges as perhaps the most complete protein source for people over 60. This meat, from animals that cannot legally be factory farmed in most countries, maintains a purity that has become rare in modern food systems. Bison graze on native grasses, develop natural immunity without antibiotics, and grow at their own pace without growth hormones or artificial interventions. The nutritional profile of bison reads like a prescription for aging bodies. 22 grams of protein per serving with only 2 to 3 grams of fat creates an almost perfect ratio for maintaining muscle while managing weight. The selenium content supports thyroid function, which often declines with age, affecting everything from energy levels to body temperature regulation. The zinc supports immune function at a time when immune resilience becomes increasingly critical. But the true magic of bison lies in its anti-inflammatory properties. Studies comparing inflammatory markers in people who consume bison versus conventional beef show significant differences in C-reactive protein levels, a key indicator of systemic inflammation. This reduction in inflammation translates into less joint pain, better cardiovascular health, and improved cognitive function. The meat itself becomes a form of medicine, addressing multiple age-related concerns simultaneously. Lamb from grass-fed sources provides another option that many overlook due to misconceptions about fat content and digestibility. Properly sourced lamb, from animals raised on pasture rather than grain, contains a fatty acid profile that actually supports rather than challenges aging metabolism. The medium-chain fatty acids in grass-fed lamb are processed differently than the long-chain fats in grain-fed meat, providing energy without contributing to arterial plaque formation. The B vitamins in lamb, particularly B12 and folate, address deficiencies that become increasingly common after 60. These vitamins support neurological function, helping maintain the nerve signals that control everything from balance to bladder control. They also play crucial roles in methylation, a cellular process that affects DNA repair and cellular regeneration throughout the body. Understanding these superior protein sources leads naturally to questions about practical implementation. How does someone accustomed to conventional meats make this transition? The answer lies not in dramatic overnight changes but in strategic substitution that allows the body and palate to adapt gradually. Starting with one meal per week featuring grass-fed beef or bison allows time to locate quality sources and learn preparation methods that maximize both nutrition and enjoyment. The sourcing of these meats requires attention but not extraordinary effort. Many local farmers now offer grass-fed beef and lamb directly to consumers, often at prices comparable to premium conventional cuts when purchased in bulk. Venison may be available from hunters in your community or specialty meat suppliers who source from managed deer populations. Bison has become increasingly available in health-focused grocery stores and online suppliers who ship frozen cuts directly to consumers. Preparation methods can make the difference between tough, gamey meat and tender, flavorful protein that becomes a dietary staple. Wild game and grass-fed meats contain less fat than conventional cuts, requiring gentler cooking methods to prevent dryness. Marinating in acid-based marinades with vinegar or citrus helps tenderize while adding flavor without sodium. Slow cooking methods like braising or using a slow cooker transform even tough cuts into fork-tender meals that are easy to chew and digest. The timing of protein consumption throughout the day affects how well aging bodies utilize these nutrients. Research suggests that spreading protein intake across 3 meals rather than concentrating it in one large serving improves muscle protein synthesis in older adults. A 3-ounce portion of bison at lunch, rather than a 6-ounce portion at dinner, provides steady amino acid availability that supports continuous muscle maintenance. The combination of different protein sources throughout the week creates a nutrient diversity that no single meat can provide. Monday might feature grass-fed beef with its CLA and omega-3 fats. Wednesday could bring venison with its creatine and carnosine. Friday might include wild salmon for additional omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D. This rotation ensures broad nutrient coverage while preventing the monotony that leads to dietary abandonment. The biochemistry of muscle preservation after 60 reveals why this approach works where conventional diets fail. Muscle tissue requires not just protein but specific amino acid patterns, cofactors, and anti-inflammatory compounds to maintain itself against the catabolic forces of aging. The leucine content in bison and grass-fed beef specifically triggers muscle protein synthesis through the mTOR pathway, a cellular mechanism that becomes less responsive with age but can be reactivated through optimal nutrition. The practical meal planning that emerges from this understanding looks different from conventional dietary advice. Breakfast might include 2 eggs from pasture-raised chickens with vegetables rather than processed breakfast meat. Lunch could feature leftover grass-fed beef mixed into a large salad with olive oil dressing. Dinner might be a small portion of herb-crusted lamb with roasted vegetables and quinoa. Snacks could include beef jerky made from grass-fed sources without added sugars or excessive sodium. The shopping list transforms from packages of deli meat and conventional chicken to smaller quantities of higher-quality proteins. The freezer becomes an ally, storing portion-sized packages of various meats that can be thawed as needed. The spice cabinet expands with herbs and seasonings that add flavor without sodium, supporting the transition away from processed foods that derive their taste from salt and additives. The physical changes that follow this dietary shift often surprise people accustomed to gradual decline. Energy levels that had been dropping for years begin to stabilize and even improve. Morning stiffness that seemed like an inevitable part of aging starts to diminish. The afternoon fatigue that demanded daily naps becomes less pronounced. These improvements are not imaginary but reflect real changes in cellular energy production, inflammation levels, and muscle function. The cognitive benefits emerge more slowly but prove equally significant. The omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, and reduced inflammation from quality protein sources support brain health in measurable ways. Mental clarity improves, word finding becomes easier, and the mental fatigue that many seniors accept as normal begins to lift. The connection between quality protein and brain function becomes undeniable through lived experience. The social aspects of this dietary change deserve consideration as well. Sharing knowledge about quality protein sources with friends and family creates community around health rather than illness. Cooking grass-fed beef for grandchildren introduces them to real food while providing an opportunity for connection. Trading recipes for wild game with others on similar journeys creates support networks that extend beyond nutrition. The economic argument often raised against quality meats dissolves when examined closely. The smaller portions required when eating nutrient-dense proteins often result in similar or lower overall costs than larger quantities of conventional meat. The reduced healthcare expenses from improved health provide additional financial benefits that compound over time. The maintained independence that comes from preserved muscle mass eliminates costs associated with assisted living or home care. This transformation in protein consumption represents more than a dietary adjustment. It acknowledges that aging bodies deserve the same quality nutrition we would demand for growing children or elite athletes. It recognizes that the decline often attributed to aging itself actually stems from decades of consuming foods that undermine rather than support cellular health. Most importantly, it demonstrates that meaningful improvement remains possible at any age when we align our food choices with our biological needs. The path forward becomes clear when we understand that every meal represents a choice between foods that accelerate aging and foods that support regeneration. The proteins we select either contribute to inflammation and muscle loss or provide the building blocks for strength and vitality. The decision to choose grass-fed bison over processed deli meat, venison over factory-farmed chicken, or wild-caught fish over farmed alternatives becomes an investment in future capability rather than mere dietary preference.